Hello, everybody. I hope you're all having a great night so far, and thank you all for joining in on tonight's webinar. I'm Ariana, and I'm going to be your hostess for tonight's webinar, and this webinar is going to be about firearm transfers. So if maybe you forgot to give someone a gift during these past holidays, or if someone's birthday is coming up, or even if you're thinking of gifting a firearm to a significant other during Valentine's Day coming up, then this is going to be the perfect info for you. In general, though, it's important to understand what your 4473 form is and what is even on it. So, which is why we have three great, very educated guys here to supply you with this information so you can have the knowledge on transferring a firearm. But two of the guys here we have today, you might have seen before. We have our executive vice president, Terry L. Johnson. And then we also have Plenty Gale, our marketing director at Firearms Legal Protection.
Hey,
and so we also have John Brand with Frisco Gun Club, and he might have taken an LTC course in Texas with him, so he could be a familiar face for some of you. But he deals with these 4473 forms daily, so he'll have important knowledge to share to all of you. So we have a lot of pre-submitted questions for our Q&A, which we'll try to get our best to get to all of them at the end of our webinar. And also this session will be recorded. So if you miss any of it, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube afterwards at your convenience. But I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to Terry to have us.
Well, wait a minute. It's February. And you haven't asked me the wonderful, you haven't told me how warm it is in Texas today.
Well, it's January and it was actually cold. It was actually cold the other week, but it's 70 degrees today. So I'm here for the 70 degree the weather.
Goodbye, Ariana. It's 31 here. Goodbye.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Hey, we got down to 20.
I don't live in Michigan. We did. Well, it got cold.
Yeah. Well, Ariana, thank you so much for the great intro.
Of course.
And I'm sure we'll hear from you a little later.
Yep.
John Brand, Frisco Gun Club. Welcome. Plenty and I are excited to have you here. And, Ariana talked about these four numbers. Let me make sure I get it right. 4473, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's good to see you again. Yeah, the 4473 form you fill out at any gun store, gun range when you're buying a gun.
All right. Are there any exceptions to that? In other words, can I just walk into Frisco and just, throw $1,000 cash on the table? You just give me a gun and I walk out?
Not for any modern gun. You could technically do it with like a black powder pistol because the ATF doesn't classify that as a firearm. We still log in our black powder pistols into the ATF bound book, so you would still have to do a 4473 with us.
Well, let's talk about this 44. Before we go, Plenty, how are you doing? I'm sorry, my apologies.
I'm doing great. I'm just here as the guy who likes to buy and sell a lot of guns, the Texas horse trading sort of dude. So I think this is a great topic that a lot of people know a little bit about because they've done it once or twice. But then they start taking it in some interesting, weird directions, and that's when all the questions come up. So I'm excited about what those questions are, getting some good answers, and getting some good info out tonight.
Outstanding. I'm going to first apologize for my voice, getting over a slight cold. Bear with me. I think I'll be able to make it through. I've had some very good medication, and some people even say Scotch is good. I haven't gone there yet, but if need be. That's what we'll do. Hey, let's talk about this 4473. So, John, tell me how this works. I come in, I want to purchase a gun. Tell me the process that I have to go through. I mean, I've found the gun of my dreams. Maybe it's my FN57, which I have one of, and I see a new one. And tell me what has to happen.
Basically, the first thing we're going to do after you've decided on the firearm or firearms that you want to purchase. We're going to ask you if you have a carry permit. Here in Texas, it's called the LTC, license to carry. I know other states call it something else, CWP, CCP, whatever. Just to simplify it for this, carry permit. The reason we're going to ask them if they have a carry permit is because in Texas, if you have a carry permit, you still have to fill out that same 4473 federal form. But a lot of states do this, that if you have a carry permit, so it's on the actual federal form on that 4473, that we don't have to call in a background check for you to be able to purchase your firearm if you have a carry permit, because you've gone through a lengthier background check to be able to get your carry permit. You can't have a carry permit and not be allowed to own a gun. You can own a gun and not have a carry permit and not be allowed to have a carry permit and still own a gun, but you can't have a carry permit and not be allowed to own a gun.
So essentially, you've already done it, already knocked it out.
Yeah, so it allows you to, I don't want to say skip a process, but it expedites things a little faster. Is that correct?
We don't have to call in the background check, which honestly, on average, the background check, as long as it's going through and gets a proceed with it, you're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes on average for us to be able to do the background check with the FBI. If it's a really busy weekend, sometimes it's FBI that does the background check.
Yeah,
it okay?
It's the FBI. It's the FBI NICS that does the background check.
And what does NICS stand for? A lot of people don't know that.
That is the oh my gosh,
National Instant
Criminal
Background Check.
Yeah. Criminal check, but it doesn't have background in it. But National Instant Criminal Check.
Right, that's what it stands for. And a lot of people don't realize anytime you buy a firearm from an FFL, and again, an FFL is like a gun store, right? Anybody, or let me rephrase that. It's anybody that sells guns
for a living.
Yeah.
For a living.
Yeah.
Commercially.
For profit.
Correct. So if someone is doing that, everybody has got to go through a NICS background check, correct?
If they don't have a carry permit, then yes. And that does vary from state to state. Federally, it's the same on every 4473. It's a federal form. There's a section on there on every 4473 that says we didn't have to call in a background check because they have a carry permit. But there are certain states that they made it a state law that they're still going to call in a background check whether you have a carry permit or not. So that can vary from state to state. If they don't have a carry permit, then absolutely we have to call in a background check. So if they inform us that they don't have a carry permit, then we're going to ask for their driver's license. And then that's what we're going to use for the background check. And we're going to use that information for it. And then we have to call the FBI NICS background check and get approved to be able to transfer that person that firearm that, they're allowed by law. They're not prohibited for whatever the many reasons are. You can be prohibited for owning one.
So let me ask this. We now go through this process and you get one of three answers, correct? You're going to get a sell the person the gun. You're going to get don't sell the person the gun. Or you're going to get a, whoa, wait a minute. Tell me what happens in each of those situations.
So basically on the background check, you're correct. There's three options. And you're either going to get a proceed, a delayed, or a denied. If you get proceeded, you're obviously going home with your gun that day. Same as if you had a carry permit and you're in a state where we don't have to call in the background check because the carry permit. You're leaving with your gun that day if you get a proceed. The other option is delayed, where if you get delayed, it could be a whole number of reasons for why you got delayed, and they don't tell us why you are delayed. We're not privy to that information.
Correct.
It could be for a number of reasons, though. It could be that you have a common name, and your common name, John
like Terry
Smith,
Johnson.
Well, yeah, Terry Johnson. You've got a common name, and it matches a felon or someone who's in prison. The other reasons I've seen people get delayed is if they've got an active duty secret clearance still with the military, which actually happens with a lot of new police officers, and they still have their active secret clearance from the military. The FBI examiner that we are dealing with on the background check does not themselves have a high enough clearance rating to check into that person's background. So there's got to be a supervisor available that has that clearance rating to check into their background. And permanent residents, I've seen them get delayed every time. I've never seen a permanent resident that just has a driver's license with no carry permit not get delayed. So it's just to check further into the background, make sure that the person we're calling the background check on is actually this person and not, felon John Smith, or, they've got that clearance rating that they're not allowed to look into and they got to have a supervisor do it for them.
Sure.
The third option is the one that you don't want, and that's denied. Correct. If you get denied, we can't transfer you the gun at all. You're not going home with that gun. Now, if you get delayed, there's still a good chance of you leaving with that gun. Most of the people that get delayed will get a call back from the FBI on the background check. Sometimes it's a day later, sometimes it's 3 days later, and they'll let us know, hey, this background check you called in is a proceed. You can transfer them the gun. And so the person that got delayed still gets their gun. Sometimes it comes back as denied, though. It's not to say they never make mistakes. There are people that have been denied, and it turns out that the FBI was checking into the wrong background for the wrong person.
Not the FBI. They'll never do that.
Oh, the government never makes mistakes. No, that doesn't happen. And so they got denied, and they have an appeals process. And there's people that got denied, and they appealed it, and they were able to get their gun later. So the appeal process takes a little while, but they were given the gun later.
And that's what I was going to ask. You have to go through that process. It's not just, oh, try again somewhere else, see if the result's going to be any different.
It's not to say that people haven't done that, they got denied, and they know they're allowed to own guns. They've bought them before, had proceeds. They haven't had anything criminally happen in their life or anything that's prohibited them from now owning a gun. And they just went to another store and, tried again. And that time the FBI examiner looked into the correct background.
Correct.
One thing I will say on that 4473, if you don't have a carry permit, there's an option on the 4473 to put down your social security number. It's optional. It's not required like a lot of the lines on there are. The social's optional, but if you put your social down, it can pretty much get them to know that they're looking into that exact person they're supposed to be looking into. So unfortunately, some people have messed up while typing in their social security number. They messed up by one number. They kind of fat fingered the keyboard and messed up. And if everything else is correct on the form, but your social's off by one number, you'll get denied.
What social do you use, John? Let's put that in and see.
Let's get that credit card info too while we're at it.
There we go. John,
this is over a decade ago, but I would always put my social in when buying with my driver's license. I never had a problem. I got preceded every time. Now that I have a carry permit, I've had a carry permit for over a decade now. I've never put my social down on the form once you have a carry permit. I wouldn't, just because the form has to be kept for the ATF in case the gun shows up at a crime scene. So all these FFLs, all of our stores, we have to keep these forms in case the gun shows up at a crime scene. And there's no need to put your social on there once you have a carry permit.
And that's another good reason to have, obviously, a carry permit, for many other reasons. It really helps you get through the process a little faster. So let me ask this. So, next time I'm in Texas, I'm not sure when that's going to be, but I come down to your store and I find a beautiful handgun that I want. And, am I allowed to buy it being a resident of Michigan?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, you can buy the gun, but I can't transfer you the gun.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? Transfer me the gun?
I can't give you the gun.
But I can buy it.
You can pay, John.
Yeah, you can give me money and I'll take it. But I can't actually give you the gun. It's just a federal law. To buy a handgun in a state, you have to be a resident of that state. So
okay, so if I
nobody outside of Texas can buy a handgun from me that I can give them.
That you can give them. So you can sell me the gun,
right?
But you can't transfer it to me, correct?
Correct. I can't transfer the gun to you. What I would have to do at that point is I would get the information from you of the local gun store or gun range or the FFL that you use in Michigan where you buy your guns from. And I would have to transfer from my FFL at Frisco Gun Club to your FFL in Michigan. So I would transfer the gun to them. You buy it from us because it is our property. You're buying it from us, but then I have to transfer it to your gun store in Michigan. And then they will be the ones that are allowed to transfer it to you once you fill out the 4473 at your gun store in Michigan.
And okay, so 4473 being done in Texas.
Got it. So there's a way to do it. So now how does this work with online sales? Is it kind of the same thing? If I, go online, see a gun I like, they just don't, do they ship it directly to my house? What do they do?
They're not supposed to. That would be illegal. It's not to say that some stores never made a mistake with their online sales and accidentally thought they were shipping it to the FFL, and it turns out they were shipping it to the person's home, which is a big no-no. The ATF will definitely not be happy with that. But no, they have to ship it to an FFL. You go on any of these online websites that sell guns, and so there's one. You've got Palmetto State Armory there. So you buy a gun from them on their website, they have to ship it to your FFL that you've picked. And they have a list of FFLs. Most of the online stores do, that you can choose from if you don't already have, your own local gun store or gun range. And then it'll be transferred to that FFL in your store. And then you go to them, same as if I transferred it from Frisco Gun Club to your store in Michigan. You fill out that 4473 and they can transfer it to you.
But there are no guarantees. I mean, I still got to go through the same process, correct?
Every time. Every time you buy a gun, it's the same process. You buy a gun today and you want to go buy a gun a week later, you're doing the same process all over again.
And I found some of these websites have really nice, intuitive, I guess, address pickers where you can pick from a selection of FFLs. But I've also seen places where you can buy online and they don't have anything like that. So they say, okay, send the FFL. And I've encountered some difficulty because if I just go to some random gun shop and say, hey, I want your FFL to send somebody, they're going to be pretty hesitant to just give that out to a random person from my experience. They tend to say, show me yours and I'll show you mine. So
yeah, we don't give FFLs out to the private buyer or to an individual.
That would be from the shop.
We will give it to the FFL. Mm-hmm. So we'll give it to the other FFL, but we're not giving our FFL out to an individual that's having a gun transferred to us. So we've got it set up pretty well on our website at Frisco Gun Club that when you buy a gun online and you want to transfer it to us, we've got a transfer tab on our website that you just click on that. You fill out your information, the gun store's information you're buying it from, or the online store, and then we will send them a copy of our FFL. We're not giving it to the individual. And then once that FFL gets ours, then they can transfer it out of their books and ship it to us.
Got it.
Is there a cost to this? And I know if there is, it obviously varies from place to place, correct?
It does. Every place that I've ever seen, every store I've dealt with arranged, they all have a transfer fee. It usually ranges anywhere from $25 all the way up to $100. It just depends. I'd say the more average you're seeing is around $25 to $50. And that's just for regular firearms. That's not going to include anything like getting into NFA items like suppressors, because there's so much paperwork involved with that they always charge more for that.
And that's just for the dealing with the paperwork, processing it, receiving it. So they're still definitely putting in good effort in order to be able to do that. I think a lot of people just see that as a fee or a loophole, but it's because somebody's actually receiving that firearm and handling that for you.
Yeah, you've got employees that anytime a gun transfer comes in, typically it'll be the receiving manager, and, they're taking time to open up the box, get out the FFL. They've got to log in that company's, if they're not already in our system and it's not somebody we've never had a transfer from, they've got to put in all of that FFL's information, including their FFL number, into our system. Then we can log in the gun, and we've got to log in the manufacturer, the model, the serial number, the caliber. We've got to get it all put into our system and then also into our ATF bound books. And then you come in to pick it up, and there's another employee that's got to take the time to go over the form with you and have you fill that out, call in the background check if needed, complete the transaction. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, we got a gun shipped to us and we can just hand it to you. So
So if it's a $25 transfer fee, you're probably hoping they buy some ammo or some earplugs while they're there.
Yeah, correct. I mean, there's a lot of manpower that gets put into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, $25 to $50 might seem a lot for a transfer of a gun that you paid somebody else to ship to us, but we're now doing all of this work to be able to get it transferred over to you.
One of the things that happens as it relates to cost, what about a lot of people have kind of inquired. I hear this. Well, I can get this gun for $12.99. That's $1,299, not $12.99.
Let's say, where are you buying these $13?
Don't buy that gun.
Well, hey, I'm in Detroit, so listen, we're gonna, but let me ask this question: are there federal taxes that are paid on firearms, John?
Federal taxes on firearms?
Yes.
As far as the person that's buying it?
Yes.
Are they paying a federal? No, they're paying the state tax.
Okay, so if there's a state tax in that state, they would pay that, but there is no across-the-board federal tax that people have to pay for the purchase of a firearm, correct?
Not that I've ever seen or heard of. I mean, you've got the federal tax with NFA items where you got to pay the $200 tax stamp for like a suppressor that plenty's holding up there. But for just regular firearms, no, they come in and buy a gun from me. The only thing that gets added on to the price of the gun is our 8.25% sales tax. That's it. No
Wow,
federal
that's you
tax.
guys 8.25%.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my Lord. We're at 6 here in Michigan, so
I have a feeling you might have some other taxes we don't have, though.
Yeah.
well, you know, I don't know the way inflation is going. You know, hey.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask this. Now, this is what we got to do if I'm purchasing a firearm from NFFL. Okay, let me ask a question.
Okay.
What happens generally, and I know this is going to vary from state to state, okay? Let's talk about some private sales, okay?
Okay.
And before we get to that, let me ask a question.
Hmm?
If I come in and I'm what's called a prohibited person, that means prohibited from buying a firearm. Can you give us some examples of people that, let's say, are prohibited people from purchasing firearms?
From purchasing. So, I mean, the most common one that I would be willing to bet most people are probably aware of, if you're a convicted felon. So if you're a convicted felon, you cannot own a gun again unless you get the rare time that a judge will expunge it off your record or a president or governor pardons you with, good luck with that one. So if you're a convicted felon, you're prohibited from owning a gun. If you've been convicted,
well, I want to correct you on that. I'm sorry. Hang on that one slight correction.
Yeah.
Not owning, purchasing, and those are two different things because some felons in some states actually have a right to possess, not necessarily purchase. I want to make sure we segregate the two. And right now we're talking purchasing, not owning.
Some states will let them still possess hunting rifles or hunting shotguns so they can go hunting.
Yeah. So, but and some even, again, it depends on the rights that get restored back in.
Correct.
So
depending on the judge.
But let's well, and again, in some places it doesn't even have to be a judge; it could be statutory. So let's more so focus on purchasing, not necessarily owning.
Yeah. So for purchasing, but filling out the 4473, coming in and purchasing one. One of the options on that 4473 is: have you ever been convicted of a felony? And if you answer yes, we're not selling you a gun. So we're not allowed to. ATF would have a big, big problem with that, and they would shut us down. Another thing that's on there, it can be for misdemeanor domestic violence. So if you've been convicted of misdemeanor domestic violence, you're not allowed to come in and purchase a firearm either. So another one too, that this one gets kind of muddled with a lot of people thinking that they think it doesn't apply. What they have to remember is this 4473 is a federal form. It's not a state form. It's a federal form. It's the same form in every state because it's federal. And there is a section on there that says, are you an unlawful user of illegal drugs? And it's got marijuana listed on there too. And a lot of people, they're like, well, they've legalized marijuana in my state now. And they even changed that federal form when all these states started legalizing marijuana to put on there under the unlawful user of illegal substances or a lawful user of unlawful substances, that even if marijuana is legal in your state, it is still illegal federally.
Right.
Yeah,
well, even if
it's in that section.
Right. Even if it is recreational or medical,
Correct.
It is still considered illegal. So, and that comes down to, I know a lot of states have caregivers who have medical marijuana cards and things along those lines.
Yeah.
They still fall in that. So let me ask you, John, if I walk into your store and I smell like I've just come out of a Scotch factory, are you going to sell me a gun?
Absolutely not. We're not going to let you go out on the range and shoot a gun. We're not going to let you rent a gun, and we're not going to sell you a gun. Not while you're under the influence of anything, alcohol, illegal drugs, even prescription drugs. If you're under the influence and you're not completely there mentally and physically, we're not selling you a gun.
Got it. Now, a lot of people, and I don't think we had even previously discussed this, but a lot of people will ask the question about, well, I'm on antidepressants, so am I banned from purchasing a firearm?
So that's another thing that's on the actual 4473, that if you have been involuntarily committed against your will like the courts decided or a judge decided that you needed to be institutionalized, you can't purchase a firearm. So as far as just being on antidepressants, that's not one of the ones on there that they have on there that if you're on antidepressants, you can't own a firearm.
Well, it says if you're an unlawful user of or addicted to. So I think if you had antidepressants without a prescription using them and you, for some reason, admitted that to the person trying to sell you a gun.
Correct.
That may be different.
Yeah. If you come in and tell us that you're, addicted to Xanax and don't have a prescription, well, that means you're addicted to an unlawful substance you're not allowed to have, and we won't sell you a gun either.
Yeah.
So, or if they check yes on the form that they are addicted to unlawful substances, then we're not going to sell them a gun.
And I want to just go back to one thing you just said so everybody's clear. You mentioned if you have been involuntarily committed.
Correct.
Now, so everyone understands, if you need help and you go get help, that's something completely different than someone else saying this person needs help and doesn't want to get it. And you have to have the courts come in and commit you. So if the courts have had to commit you and you did not want that to happen, that is what you're referring to as involuntary.
Yes, but sir. Yeah, absolutely, Terry.
If you need help,
involuntarily committed you. If you just went and sought help on your own and you checked in somewhere to get some mental help or anything like that, that's different. And it's if the courts deemed you mentally ineffective, not your spouse, not your wife thinking you're crazy or something like that. It's going to be if the courts committed you. So if you're committed by whether it be a jury or typically a judge in that case.
So let me ask this question then. Let's say I am a prohibited person, and I want to have. I'm going to say, hey, Plenty, I really like this FN57. It's John's going to sell it to me. I'm going to give you an extra $200. Go buy it for me.
Yeah, that would be an illegal straw purchase.
Yes, it would be. Yeah, that would be
explain that to our listeners.
I would say it's very similar to when someone says, "Hey, I can't legally buy alcohol. Would you go buy alcohol for me? I'm a minor. Would you do that?" I think a lot of people know that is very much illegal and not something that you're prohibited to do. Different set of laws here, but the conclusion is similar. I can't buy a gun for someone else. I can only buy a gun for me. And that's the very first question on this form, I believe. Are you the actual transferee or buyer of this firearm?
So let me ask this question, because again, we're going to get into private sales shortly. And I believe someone kind of asked something here. I was looking for kind of leading into this, but if I'm going to buy a gun for, let's say, my wife, does this form basically say I can't buy it for my wife?
No,
how does that work?
No, so you can, again, it will depend on the state. It is state specific when it comes to that, as far as, private transfers, private sales, stuff like that. But as far as here in Texas, and we have people do this every year, especially around Christmas, it's perfectly legal to gift somebody a gun as far as the federal government is concerned, as long as you're knowing for a fact that they're allowed to own a firearm or that they're not prohibited from being able to own a firearm. So I've done it for my wife. I've done it twice, actually. So twice I've bought her guns for, I think one was for Christmas and one was for her birthday. No, don't get me wrong. I got her some jewelry too, but I've bought her guns.
That's not what I heard, John.
And I gifted them to her. Hey, I'm no dummy. I'm not just going to get her that gun and be like, hey, if you don't like it, it's mine now. So I got her jewelry too, but it's perfectly legal to give somebody a gun. As long as they're not prohibited from owning one. I have dads do it all the time for their daughters when they're off at college and they're getting their first off-campus apartment, and they're not going to be living in the dorms anymore, and they're not 21 yet. Maybe they're 19, maybe they're 20, and you have to be 21 to be able to legally purchase a handgun from an FFL. To go fill out a 4473 and purchase a handgun, you have to be 21. But it is perfectly legal for that dad to buy a gun. He fills out that 4473 and he gifts it to his daughter.
In Texas, you're referring to?
Correct. And there's several states that's okay. And then there's some states where it's not okay.
Right.
But there
Got
are
to be
several
careful.
states where that's fine because federally it is okay. So unless states made a law saying you're not allowed to do that, as far as it being a, that'd be more like a private transfer to somebody at that point.
Yeah, just with $0 involved. Yeah.
So,
Correct.
but let's go back to the original question. So, if I come into your store and I'm going to buy a gun for Plenty,
Mm-hmm.
and as far as I know, Plenty is an eligible person. I just think he's done a great job with these webinars, and I want to just say thank you. And so, Plenty, I'm going to buy you a gun. Okay,
I'm going to encourage this.
There we go. I'm going to go into Frisco Gun Club. Is a better way for this for me to just kind of get a gift card and give it to Plenty so that Plenty can come in and, with this gift card and purchase a gun?
And buy the gun he wants instead of, you forcing an FN57 on him?
Well, I don't think it would be forcing.
I don't think it would be
five
either.
7
It's a
by
great
28
gun.
anywhere. So
Yeah, it's a great gun. But maybe he already owns one. Absolutely. You can buy a gift card and give him that. You could actually pay for the gun if you want to make sure he's actually going to get that gun and not go, blow that gift card on ammo, and you want to make sure he gets the gun, then you could pay for the gun and he could come in and fill out the 4473 since that's a gift that you're giving him. What you can't do is Plenty can't tell you, and even if he's not prohibited, even if he's legally allowed to come in himself and buy the gun, he can't give you the money for that gun and have you come buy it and fill out the 4473.
Right.
Say that one more time so everybody gets that.
So even if he's not prohibited from owning a gun, he's legally allowed to buy one. He can come in, fill out a 4473, buy it, leave with it. He has a carry permit, so he knows he's leaving with the gun. What he is not allowed to do is give you the money for the gun and have you come fill out that 4473, because that's going to be an illegal straw purchase at that point, because it's not a gift now. He's paying for it, he's buying it, and yet he's having you fill out the form. That's illegal. But if you just buy it for him as a gift and a thank you, like, hey, I bought you this gun, even with that, you can fill out the 4473 and then give it to him. Because the gift card, well, yeah,
very
you can do that.
separate transactions.
Yeah, but the problem for the gift card one is, like the people that want to surprise their partner with a gun underneath the tree at Christmas. They want them to open it up and have their gun, not open it up and, hey, here's a gift card, go buy it when you want to. So as long as it's a gift, it's okay. I mean, I'm not even joking. I could buy a gun right now and I could go gift it to some homeless guy on the street. No joke. Now, I'm not breaking a law, not in Texas. Some states you will be, but I wouldn't be breaking the law because I'm like, hey, I got you this as a gift.
And there's a good example of is it legal is not the same as is it prudent.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask this. So now we've got all of these rules and other things that are in place as it relates to FFLs. And again, an FFL is a store that in this normal course of business is to buy and sell firearms. But you know what? I don't want to deal with all these
licensed
rules.
by the ATF.
Correct. I don't want to deal with all these rules.
Yeah.
So I just want to go meet, Pookie or Ray Ray on the corner and buy a gun. Am I allowed to do that?
So, I mean, in some states, yes, and in some states, no. It will vary from state to state. The majority of the states still allow private sales, but there's definitely a lot of states.
What is a private sale? Let's talk about that. What does that mean?
So, say you want to buy my gun, or let's reverse this. I want to buy your FN57, which I doubt you're going to sell me. But if you're okay with that.
Oh, for you, I've got a very special price.
I better hear $13.
Okay.
I heard that
$5,013.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'll just buy one from our store instead. But if I want to buy it from you privately and you're okay with that, then since private sales are legal in Texas, we can do that. I can give you the money and you just give me the gun. What I always recommend.
Paperwork? Is there any paperwork that has to be involved?
In some states there are. In some states there's
Texas?
Not. In Texas, no. Technically, I could just meet you in the Frisco Gun Club parking lot, and
there's
you show up with your
there's one big
FN57.
assumption we're making here.
Do what?
Is Terry a Texas resident?
No, Terry's Michigan resident.
Yeah. So does that change this?
Does that change this because he's in Texas right now with his gun?
Yeah.
Well, he's in Texas selling me a gun, and I am a resident of Texas.
Yeah.
But what if it's the other way around? What if I come to Texas and I want to buy
a gun privately for me?
Privately, yes.
No. No, I can't sell you that gun.
Because now that's interstate commerce.
That's one thing that I always recommend for anybody, because the ATF does some stings on this. Not only privately between like sites like Texas Gun Trader or Arms List, but they go to the gun shows. So again, gun shows, I love the whole gun show loophole myth that I can't believe is still going around. It's been debunked time and time again. There's no gun show loophole. Most people selling guns at gun shows are an FFL just like us. It's a store that brought their guns to that gun show. They're selling them, and they still have to follow all the same federal laws they follow in their store, have somebody fill out a 4473, have them go through a background check. But there are a handful of people at gun shows that are walking around selling guns privately. And the ATF has had an ATF agent from Oklahoma come to Texas and go to the gun show. And they find one of the private sellers, and they buy the gun, and the private seller did not ask to see that person's driver's license to verify that they are, in fact, a resident of Texas. So the private seller sells the undercover ATF agent that they don't know is ATF a gun. ATF agent gives them the money. And I mean, they've been pretty nice about it with some people that just didn't know better. It wasn't their intent to break the law. They just were ignorant of the law and didn't know this. And then after the transaction, they've whipped out their ATF badge to let them know, I'm ATF and I'm an Oklahoma resident. And you're not allowed to sell me this gun in Texas because it's a handgun and I'm not a resident of Texas. And they just informed them of the law with some people and been nice and got their money back and gave them back their gun and let them know, when you do sell this privately, you make sure you find out that they are a Texas resident before you sell it to them.
Or a resident of the state that they're in.
Correct. Yes. If they're in another state where private sales are legal. You know, if you're in Oklahoma, you know, selling privately, make sure that that person you're selling the handgun to is a resident of Oklahoma.
So let me go back, and I know plenty. You probably want to get a break in here in a moment or two. So give us 2 minutes, and let me put this out to John. John, what happens in a situation where, let's say, you know, my dad lived in Texas and he's now deceased. I'm here in Michigan, and he left me he left these handguns for me.
Right. And he's left them to you in a will or something like that?
Sure. Let's say a will.
Okay. So what a lot of times will happen is that a lot of people there, they will ship their guns to the FFL in Michigan, where then you can go pick them up at your FFL in Michigan, fill out the 4473 and have them, you know, background checked and all that, unless you have the carry permit, which I know you do. I know you have a carry permit. I'm not sure. Does Michigan not do the background check on a 4473 if you have a carry permit, like Texas?
Great question. There's some controversy surrounding that here, because we've had some issues, believe it or not, with our largest police department in the state. I'm not going to mention Detroit by name. And there's just been some shady things going on. So I know there's some controversy around that.
I got you.
But I will say a lot of people will think that, hey, these guns are now mine. They're in Texas, and I can just, you know, go down and grab them and cross the state line. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Even in private sales, the only difference between all the rules still apply under 4473 that you'd fill out for an FFL. Even though they're not in front of you, you're still responsible for some of these.
Correct. They still apply to a private sale.
Right. So I'm with that. I know Plenty probably wants to do something real quick, and we're going to turn it back to Plenty for a couple of minutes and let John and I rest our voices for a moment.
All right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of you are probably tuning into this webinar because you saw it in the Firearms Legal Protection newsletter. Maybe you saw it. You just happen to be scrolling Facebook and you're like, oh, that looks interesting. I'll check that out. maybe you saw it on YouTube. Don't know where you saw it, but we're glad you're here. And we just wanted to make sure that if you do not have legal protection, that is an extremely important thing to have. And so for viewers of this webinar, we actually have a discount code. So if you look in the description, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, there is a link in there that will get you a discount. So make sure to check out that link. Again, a lot of you probably are protected. You're members of FLP. But if you have friends or family who are walking around without any sort of legal protection, and you have a firearm and you're prepared to defend yourself, but you're not prepared for the legal fight afterwards, you probably want to check out that code. So we're going to go over the plans real quick. Firearms Legal Protection offers several different types of memberships, starting with memberships for individuals and memberships for families. Some of the plans, benefits, and prices vary state by state. For the purpose of this discussion, we're going to look at our most common plan that's available in most states. The individual basic membership plan is the bread and butter of our service. This plan includes protection in your state of residence, so not nationwide, just in your state. It also includes uncapped payment of attorney's fees for the defense of criminal cases and civil cases. Again, there is no maximum cap on what FLP will pay on these cases. This protection extends to all legal weapons. With the individual basic plan, you also have defense against extreme risk protection orders, otherwise known as red flag laws. FLP will fight those on your behalf. All plans, including the individual basic plan, have access to the 24/7 attorney-answered emergency hotline and access to the My FLP mobile app. Our newest benefit, expungement of criminal record on non-conviction incidents, is included with all plans, including the individual basic plan. Members of all plans can also enjoy access to digital content and special discounts. The next step up is the individual premium plan. This plan is ideal for members who travel across the country because this plan includes protection in all 50 states. This plan is also perfect for somebody who just wants the very best benefits. This plan includes all the benefits that I mentioned in individual basic, as well as several more. The individual premium plan includes payment of bail bond premium, generally up to $250,000 in most states. This plan also includes payment of expert witness fees, payment of investigator fees should either be needed in your case, coordination of counseling support, payment of lost wages if you're out of work during a trial, incident scene cleanup. Should you ever have an incident, you're going to need somebody to clean up that mess. That's covered in this plan. The individual premium plan also includes payment for incident-related firearm confiscation. So if your firearm is confiscated, FLP will write you a check for the value of that firearm. Many FLP members want the same protection that they receive for themselves to also apply to their family. That's why we have the Family Premium Plan. For just a little bit more, you get protection, again, in all 50 states, all of the benefits that are included with the individual basic and individual premium plans, and you have this same protection that now applies to your spouse, and these benefits apply to all minor children. And we define minor children as any child living with you age 17 and younger. Whether you want the most affordable plan that covers all of the basic benefits, whether you want something a little bit more that has some premium benefits, or whether you want complete protection for your entire family, there are several plans available, and Firearms Legal Protection has a plan for you. If you are not already protected by Firearms Legal Protection, please check the description below this video where we have a special discount for viewers of this webinar. If you have friends or family who also need protection, feel free to share this code. We want everybody to enjoy the benefits and protection of Firearms Legal Protection membership plans. All right, thanks y'all. Thanks for hanging in for a little bit of commercial break there. Again, having legal protection is incredibly important. So let's go back to John and Terry here. Looks like you guys are still muted. There we go.
There we go. So the interesting thing in this topic is it is amazing how people want to really do the right thing. Yeah. And, you have a lot of criminals out there that, do so many wrong things. Let me ask this question of both of you, if, again, am I wrong if I sell Plenty a gun and I didn't realize that he had a felony and he's a prohibited person? I mean, he didn't tell me, again, in a private cell. You think I'd get in any trouble for that?
So
Yeah.
on a private sale, that's not on you to perform a background check or anything like that. And the states that do allow private sales, private transfers. So I mean, unless he just flat out came out and told you while you're meeting him in that, parking lot of that gun store or whatever to purchase that gun, unless he flat out tells you, hey, I'm a convicted felon, I'm not allowed to own a gun, any of those reasons, then that's not on you to know that he's a felon. So, I mean, how would you know? And I mean, people aren't saying that. So I think that's one reason why some people have a problem with private sales is because you don't know who you're dealing with. They could be lying and letting you know, hey, I'm legally allowed to own a gun. That's why actually in a lot of private sales that you'll see on websites like Texas Gun Trader, Arms List, stuff like that, that some of those sellers, they will put on there that they require you to have a carry permit, and you will have to show them that you have a carry permit, because if they show you a carry permit, they're allowed to legally own a gun.
Yep.
Sure. And here's a couple of other things just to keep in mind with that. Not only are as you go through this, I think the thing people really need to understand is some states do require certain things like background checks. Like, for example, here in Michigan, if you, again, going back to your point, John, if you have a carry permit, I still have to fill out a pistol sales record, if I have a carry permit, but I don't have to have a background check done on me. If I'm a person without a carry permit and I want to purchase a gun here in Michigan, someone has got to go and get what's called a 30-day purchase permit, which basically means that they've got to go and have a background check run on them to see if they're eligible to possess a firearm. And
this is with private sales too.
Private sales, absolutely. Right, yeah. But that carry permit, again, is really good. So we highly encourage anybody out there that doesn't have a carry permit, check with some of your local FLP folks. If you're in the Dallas Metroplex, as you guys call it, we highly recommend the Frisco Gun Club. They do a phenomenal job, and you might even get John Brand, as your instructor. He does a great job, but definitely look to get a carry permit, take some kind of class, because it's beneficial to you in so many ways. So we got time for some questions, plenty from some of our viewers.
Yeah, I want to something before we get into all the questions, and I think we can kind of do this as just kind of a sprint, roll through them as quick as possible, just shoot through them all quick. Something that I've had a lot of my friends wonder about, and I don't want to get into the weeds because I know this gets to be a really messy subject, but that 4473, throw it back up here, this is not firearm registration. There are some states that require firearm registration, some states that don't. So, John, when somebody fills out this 4473, where does it go?
So it goes into our file cabinets at Frisco Gun Club. We do have to keep the 4473. Yeah, it stays on site with us. We don't send this off to the ATF after you leave with your gun or anything like that. And like you said, most states don't have gun registration. Some states do, but most states don't. And
6 states.
Federally, it's not required. Yeah.
That's 6
states. I think it's 6 states. Yep.
Do you know all 6?
Oh, geez, here we go. Hawaii.
Yeah.
Michigan, and I'm calling Michigan registration because of the pistol sales record.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the private.
I believe New York.
Yep.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
California.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Illinois. Don't quote me. I think I got 4 out of the 6.
You got 5 of them. I'm curious what the 6th one is, and I can't remember if it is Illinois or Washington State or Massachusetts. I can't remember which one it is. But back to you for that 4473. No, we don't turn it into the ATF after you fill it out. The only way that they are going to see this 4473 is if your gun shows up at a crime scene.
Yeah.
And they've got to do a gun trace because they don't know who bought that gun. So they'll contact the manufacturer. Manufacturer says, we sold it to this distributor. Distributor says, we sold it to this gun store. And that's when they're going to contact me, and they're going to want a copy of that 4473 you filled out. And then they're going to contact you. And hopefully at that point, you have a legitimate reason for why that gun's at a crime scene, that you sold it privately, or, you sold it on consignment at another gun store, or you reported it stolen, which as long as you reported it correctly stolen, they should be able to see that on the stolen report list.
Sure.
They have to start at the beginning to get to the end. So, you sell your gun privately to somebody, or, you put it on consignment at another gun store, it shows up at a crime scene. They're going to be calling you. You were the first one that bought it on a 4473. But we don't turn that into the ATF for any reason, just other than a crime scene that they need to do a gun trace. That's it. So, I mean, if you have a carry permit, we don't even have to call in a background check. How would anybody know that you bought that gun? And it's the same thing if you don't have a carry permit and we just use your driver's license, we have to call in that background check. When we call in a background check on these, it's not sale of, Glock serial number, blah, 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 or sale of FN serial number, blah, blah, blah. That's not what it is. It is literally sale of handgun or sale of long gun or sale of other. Like if you were buying a strip
like a receiver. Yeah.
Yeah, a receiver.
Got it.
So that's all it is. Sale of handgun, sale of long gun, sale of other. Not what gun, what serial number, none of that. No manufacturer, model, nothing. So we don't have gun registration. Again, 6 states do, but most
and John Halpin from South Carolina. Hi, John. Always good to hear from you. Maybe I'll see you soon since it's cold up here in Michigan. But John typed in Connecticut, and I will defer to John as that being the 6th state.
Okay, makes sense.
Gotcha. You mentioned a bill of sale earlier, very briefly. I'm just throwing one up on the screen just for people to get some kind of concept of what this is. Some states require it. Most states don't. The exact details in here, don't take that too literally. The point of a bill of sale is just to document a transfer, to say that, hey, John, I sold you this pistol for this much on this date. So if it's ever brought up, if they're ever trying to trace it back, I can say, no. I don't own this gun. Here's the bill of sale.
Yeah, it's what I tell anybody that asks me about private sales or private purchases, that even if your state, like Texas, doesn't require any of this paperwork for a private sale, always do a firearm bill of sale, whether you're the buyer or the seller. And I mean, the most important information is it's going to have your name, their name, the make and model and serial number of the firearm, the caliber of the firearm, or firearms if it's multiple. And then there's a place for both of you to sign and date.
And here's the other part. Here's the other part just to put in there, just to be safe. Again, I guess it's just the lawyer and me coming out. That you acknowledge you are not a prohibited person by law, and that you are over, of legal age. And again, that legal age can be 18 if it's that state, or 21. You just want to make sure that your bases are covered. So
correct. And make sure you're checking out at least that they show you. I mean, some people don't want you to get too close to be able to see all the information that's personal on their, driver's license or their LTC. So a lot of them aren't going to let you make a copy of it or take a picture of it. Some of them will.
I got one.
But they've got the concern that you're going to come and rob them. So
And someone just posted here, I know we'll get to the questions. If I purchase a firearm from a private individual in the state that I live in, am I required to register the weapon with a government agency? And again, that depends on the state. You have to know your state.
Yeah. Not federally, but in your state, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. One thing I would add to that, though, is that I would be shocked if you're one of those 6 states that has gun registration. I'd be shocked if they allow a private sale.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if they have gun registration and would be okay with a private sale. That, like California, private sale, you can't do it. You've got to go to an FFL, and they'll log it into their books from the seller, and then they'll sell it to whoever's buying it with a 4473 and a background check.
Gotcha.
What other
Terry, you were ready to get on to questions, and then I took it on a whole other rabbit trail. So, Ariana, will you just load this thing up almost like a tennis ball machine and just lob questions at us one at a time real quick, and we'll just kind of do a speed round here?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I'll put David's question up first. Could you go over transfers, inheritance to any family members upon the death of an owner, including any legal documents such as wills and family's trusts are affected? I know we've gone over a lot of this, but it'd be great to briefly just recap.
That's all going to be state specific. And again, if you're crossing state lines, as we've said before, you're going to have to use a FFL, take the guns in there, and they will ship them to the FFL. Even if you live 5 minutes from the state border, you still have to do that. I mean, it's just the law, and we're obviously law-abiding citizens. So that's what you have to do. If it is a state that requires registration, again, I'm assuming the executor of that estate would take care of that as well. So yeah.
And that'll need to be set up by an attorney anyway. So I would say when you go to get your will or trust set up, that's exactly who you should be asking those questions to.
And let me make one thing clear. Make sure that if you're dealing with firearms and you do it in a will or a trust versus a NFA trust, those two are different. And the reason I bring that up is not every attorney understands firearms and how they work. And I get a tremendous amount of questions from people here in Michigan about, hey, a relative died. I now have their guns. What do I do? They were willed to me. And it is actually in statute, and not everybody knows where to find that statute. So hopefully that answers your question, David.
All right, let's get the next question. Jeremy's question is specifically, we would like to transfer a pistol from my son to myself. I'm a CPL holder. What is the best way you can do that in the state of Michigan?
You want to take that, John, or you want me to do it?
Well, I mean, you are the Michigan resident, but fortunately from knowing you and getting this information from you, and you'll probably have to help me with the name of that form. But from what I understand from the information you've given me with Michigan laws is that is okay since he's a CPL holder, but he has to fill out that form that you guys don't call it gun registration in Michigan. What do you call it? It's an RI-60. It's a pistol sales record. So if you're a CPL holder, if your son is a CPL holder, you both just put your CPL numbers on it. The one who's purchasing it has got to take one of the copies to the local police agency. If your son is not a CPL holder, your son would have to go to his local police station and do one of those 30-day purchase permits that I just talked about. So the son would have to sell it to his dad, who's a CPL holder?
Other way around.
Well, yeah, but he's wanting to transfer a pistol from his son to himself, and he is a CPL holder. So if the son doesn't have a CPL, they wouldn't have to do that 30-day form to transfer it to his dad who has CPL, right?
If his dad has a CPL, that is correct. If that is the way the question is written.
Okay.
Good, guys?
Let's move on.
All right. Soto's question, can someone with a denied NICS sell and ship a firearm to an out-of-state FFL dealer?
Ooh, that's a good question. My guess, as somebody who's purely taking a guess, would be that NICS is ultimately for receiving a firearm. Can I receive it? Not necessarily anything.
Not as receiving. NICS is for purchasing. So
okay, that's a great clarification.
Let's make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
If I've been denied
owning versus purchasing, which was awesome.
Yep.
He's correct, 100%.
Yeah.
Say that again, John. I'm sorry.
I said, remember when he lawyered me when you were saying purchasing versus owning?
Yep.
You're 100% correct. I love that you lawyered me on that, though, because you're right. It is a difference in purchasing and owning.
Right. So here, can someone who is denied NICS sell and ship a firearm to an out-of-state FFL dealer? And again, they are selling it as long as it's legally their firearm. So, for example, if I've, let's say I've been, I don't know, I'm in the middle of a criminal trial right now and I need to sell my firearms and I'm not, they're my property. I've got to get rid of them. I am free to sell them or do whatever I have to get them out of my hands. So yes, the NICS again is for purchasing, not necessarily possessing.
Yeah, which that's a good question, and it's probably a little bit confusing, but maybe they went to go buy a gun, they got denied, and now they don't want to be in trouble by having guns that they're not allowed to possess, and they want to sell it, put it on consignment at another FFL or anything like that. But as long as it's going to that FFL dealer, then they're going to be okay there. And I mean, like you said, it'll depend during a criminal trial. Sometimes they're going to confiscate firearms or give you the option of you need to sell them or transfer them over to a family member and you don't have possession of them anymore. And that's okay.
Correct.
So.
Thank you, Soto.
All right, Paul's question: how to identify a state sale or stated sale transfer price which will not create a large tax consequence, further declarations for the friend or family member while still remaining legal.
That is a question I'm not sure that we can answer here. I think we would need more specifics. If you want to email us at attorneys@Firearms Legal, we can help you out there. One thing with attorneys, our staff, we're a little behind. We've had some folks who have had the coronavirus, and we are trying to catch up. So please bear with us there. We want to make sure that we get you some accurate information that comes out. So I think that's one that can be better answered there. Thank you.
Great. So we have Tina's question: do I need a document of transfer if giving a pistol to my daughter? Kind of went over this earlier, but good to go.
Depends on your state.
Yeah,
not
I
federally,
mean,
but maybe in a state. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love it. It's one of my favorite things with ever talking to an attorney, because you'll always hear that from them, at least if they know what they're doing. Like Terry, I've heard him say to so many different questions, it depends. And he's right. And in this case, it does depend on the state. In some states, you're going to need that document to transfer it to her. In other states, you're not. In Texas, you wouldn't need to, but in plenty
And
of
also
states,
all
you
the
do.
other things we talked about is your daughter. Make sure she's not a prohibited person. Does your state have an age on the ownership of that particular firearm? So lots of
Right.
other state specific things, as you mentioned.
And I'm just going to throw a little caveat in here about Michigan law, very, very briefly. I can loan my gun to anybody who has a concealed pistol license in the state of Michigan. If you don't have a concealed pistol license, I can't loan you my gun. So even if you were like my next door neighbor and something was going on and you needed a firearm in your house for protection because someone had just broken in and you thought they were coming back, I legally cannot give you my firearm.
Interesting.
But you
So-
can loan it to a CPL holder in Michigan, but you wouldn't have to do that form you were talking about, where if you were actually selling it to a CPL holder?
Well, I'm loaning. It's a difference between transferring and loaning.
Correct. Yeah, but it's okay to loan it to them, just not okay to sell it to them.
Correct.
Man, maybe you just loaned them a gun and they loaned you money.
Oh, geez. We do not endorse that. And
That's a
that is
pawn
not
shop
stance.
situation.
I am kidding.
I think we have time for a couple more.
All right. David's question: how can I find buyers for unwanted firearms?
So what's interesting is Facebook and Craigslist actually used to be great, but now both those organizations have very stringent no firearm policies. Back in the day when they allowed it, there were many trades that I did on those things, but not anymore. So it can be hard. You can't just go post it on Facebook Marketplace, but there are other sites, and a lot of times forums are a great place to look. Even like for Texans, Texas Bow Hunter, it's all about archery, but most guys who own a bow also own a gun. So look at those local gun forums around you. That's a pretty good place. There's always Gun Broker and Arms List. What else? Do you guys
We've
have
got
any other
Texas Gun
suggestions?
Trader,
Yeah.
and a lot of states have their own version of Gun Trader.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, the biggest ones for private are going to be Texas Gun Trader and Arms List, or your version of Gun Trader in your state. And then after that, Gun Broker. But Gun Broker is actually kind of more like a gun show, where the most people selling on Gun Broker are actually FFLs, and there's a handful of private sellers on Gun Broker. Whereas Gun Trader, Arms List, mainly that's private sellers, and then you've got a handful of FFLs.
I've even seen people when a local police department does a gun buyback program and they have a bunch of stuff that's broken and doesn't work. They're like, all right, Walmart gift card, let's go.
Yeah, but there's people
I don't necessarily recommend it, but
people have gone to the gun buybacks and bought legit, nice working guns from the people that were standing in line, and they're like, "Look, they're going to give you $100 gift card. I'll give you $400 right now for that gun," and it's in a state where private sales are legal, and they're like, "Here you go."
Yeah,
and that might be a gun that's worth $1,000.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do one more question and then we'll conclude it out for the webinar. But John's question: if my state includes firearms, does there need to be any special wording or provisions in my will such that there's a smooth transfer for my firearms to my heirs?
I would advise you to talk to a local attorney in your area who's handling that estate. They're more familiar with the general laws. John, we're not sure what state you're in, and we don't want to give you bad information. So who's ever doing that for you, that's who I would strongly suggest you go back and have those people put in what you want to put in, and they can tell you whether it's legal and whether it will fall under the proper statutes within that state. Well, John Brand, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure being with you, and thanks for sharing your knowledge and expertise. And get that FN57 ready for me. I think I need another one.
Well, I'm not an attorney. I might have to buy the Ruger 5.7. I'll let you buy the more expensive ones.
Well,
that's
I think
a trademark issue.
I think I'll see you in Vegas, and I'll let you take care of that for me. How about that?
Perfect. That'll work. It's always good to see you, sir, and I hope your voice feels better.
Well, I'm sure it will, and thank you all. Ariana, always a pleasure. And again, I don't need to know the temperature at this point because it's getting colder here. And plenty before I let you close with the last words. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for being part of Firearms Legal Protection. More than anything else, let's get yourself protected. If you're protected, reach out to a loved one. As we talked about gifting guns, gift FLP, show them some love for Valentine's Day that's coming around. We appreciate you. And as I've always said, and I know the folks back in Dallas really know I mean this, if you don't get us, get someone. We believe we're the best, but if you don't get us, please get someone. Get yourself protected. And we believe the best people to protect you is us. Thank you very much. Plenty, I'm going to turn it over to you for the final word.
Well, I don't know if I can end it any better than that. I hope you guys learned something tonight. If you want to check out any of the other webinars, feel free to do so. We've got some blog articles up on the site. We're just always coming up with new stuff, just trying to learn things. So I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, we'll see you.
Stay safe.
See ya.